ladies. Tiffany Lesnick here from Live Free Legal, where our slogan is from fear to freedom. This month, the month of July, is all about taking back our freedom from abuse. And today we have with us a very special guest. Her name is Janet Kelly, and she is also a survivor of domestic violence. And today we're going to be talking about your declaration of freedom and saying goodbye to the lies of fear, saying goodbye to the lies of abuse, and walking into freedom this month. We're going to be sharing her survivor story and talking about how you can write your own declaration of freedom. Telling your story is so powerful. It will inspire other people and help you break out of that cycle of fear and break out of that cycle of domestic abuse, and will help with your healing process. So telling your story is very empowering and important. Janet, thank you so much for being here. Are you comfortable telling us where you are, Janet?
Yes, thank you for letting me be on your show. I appreciate it. I am in Texas.
Okay.
I have always been a Texan, lived here my whole life.
And I'm in North Carolina. As many of you know, I'm North Carolina domestic violence and family law attorney, and I'm also a survivor. The goal is to teach you tips to encourage and empower you to have the best possible legal outcomes in high conflict divorce cases where there is abuse. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah. I was in a long-term marriage of domestic violence, and I didn't really understand what was happening for most of it. When I got married in the 80s, nobody talked about narcissism or domestic violence. I thought I was married to an extremely difficult person, but I was committed to trying to make it work. Towards the end, realized he knew everybody. He knew the police chief, the judges, the lawyers, CPS. I thought, if I call the cops, no one's going to believe me. I never risked calling the cops. I never risked thinking about divorce. I thought that would be 50-50 custody. And then I wouldn't be there half the time to protect my kids. So I just didn't consider it. I waited till the last kid graduated high school. And as that time approached, I started planning. If he doesn't change, if he doesn't go to counseling, if he doesn't get help, then I'm out. Because his position was public, he was not wanting all of his family secrets to be in the newspaper. I waited until I realized that no matter what happened, I could get my half of retirement. It was a state law. Nothing could change that. Once I realized that, I was like, okay, he can't leave me destitute, which is what he loved to do. So then I started making my moves. I filed for divorce. As soon as he moved out of the house and I was safe, we had put up cameras, we had changed the locks. My one child that would be called an Enneagram 8 had been telling people for 10 years, ever since she graduated high school, this guy is abusing us. She went public and was like, this is what my dad did to me. She didn't even talk about what I experienced. She said, this is the child abuse I endured, which created a child abuse investigation on him. Multiple family members were involved, and somehow it didn't make the media. I felt for the people that had to make decisions about that. I know some of them are good people, but they waited until his contract was up for renewal and they didn't renew it. They did what is called the kiss of death for a school administrator. They took no action. They put it on the agenda and they came out of executive session and said nothing, which forces the party that they're investigating to retire, announce they're leaving. So all of that was happening. But in the middle of that, I had mediation. And the investigation had already happened. We didn't know what was going to happen because we knew he was mad. But when I went into mediation, I was like, just give me what I know is mine and let's be done. I just want to be free.
Do you think that the abuse investigation at the time that you were going into mediation gave you additional leverage or additional power to be able to negotiate with him?
I was at first horrified that this extra thing had happened because in my mind, I was just trying to get out alive. And but when I went in there, I was like, I'm not going to bring up more about that because he had created a whole narrative that I had put her up to it, that I was trying to force him to retire and all these things. I was like, we both know this girl speaks the truth and she doesn't care. I had been warning him for like 5 years. You're worried about me. You got to worry about our daughter who has been telling the truth about you. He didn't believe it was going to happen.
They
Yeah.
spin this narrative about us, right? That's common amongst
Mm-hmm.
abusive men. If you're experiencing that, ladies, know that is completely normal. That should be
Mm-hmm.
expected. It's
And
not
so,
you. You're not the
yeah,
crazy one. They're the ones
yeah.
that are the crazy making behavior.
So, literally in mediation, I did everything Tina tells you to do. I had all kinds of documents and texts about abuse if that came up. I had been living in the guest room with a burglar bar on the door till he moved out because he
Wow.
had broken the door twice trying to get in and yell at me. I thought in my head, I do think that him giving me that and letting me finish mediation, I think he hoped it would all go away. And he even had the mediator tell me, I'm giving you all this stuff if you'll tell Grace to be quiet. I was like, Grace is 29 years old and has never been quiet. She's been telling people for 10 years on 3 continents. I can't take that back from him.
Right.
There's no way I can undo that. And I'm not even going to try. That's her life. That's her
Right.
story. So that's where it ended. Then, of course, he tried to throw a little thing like the day his contract wasn't renewed, he tried to change the divorce decree to threaten me in some way. I just drove down to the courthouse and my lawyer was there. And I said, we're going to figure this out before I leave today because I'm not going through this. And we came up with a plan and sent it back to his lawyer. The judge signed it the next week on my birthday.
Uh,
Which,
what a birthday present.
yeah, my freedom day is my
Yeah.
birthday.
Awesome. So were you able to settle in mediation?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. And it does sound like the abuse investigation did have a powerful impact on your ability to resolve everything in mediation, from what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, I think it did. Honestly, as I've gone through learning about being a divorce or a negotiation coach, I could have waited. I could have said, I'm going to figure out how much money he really has because he had a couple of multiple lives going on that I didn't know about. And had I waited, I might have gotten more money, but I may not be divorced. And it's been several years. You can fight it out for years, but it's not worth it. Your peace comes at a huge price, and you've been paying that price for decades. And so
Right.
there's a point where you're just like, this is enough. I can live comfortably. I'm not destitute. My peace is more valuable to me than any kind of bank account.
Absolutely. Now, what I will add on to that, Janet, is I have a lot of clients who are willing to forfeit everything, right? They're
Mhm.
not taking any equity. They're not taking any of the assets. They're not taking alimony or support. They're willing to sign everything away to him for a false sense of peace because he
Mhm.
promises, if you sign this document, I will leave you alone. It's been my experience. They do
They
not
don't.
leave you alone, right? And then you set
Mm-mm.
yourself up to be destitute or without the means to legally fight for yourself or your children later on because he now contains all the assets. So I don't think that's what Janet is talking about here,
No.
ladies. If you believe he's secreting away money or there's an extra account here or there, but you're still getting a reasonable amount of assets or support from him that's going to meet your bottom line each month, sometimes it's worth letting go of all that potential extra that might be there and might not be there. But we're not saying you
Right.
should forfeit everything just to get away from him to save your peace, because chances are, especially if you have children, he's going to be around for a while and you're going to need
Yeah.
those resources.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My kids were grown, so I wasn't worried about child custody. That would have changed my strategy for
right.
sure.
Yeah. And
And and I was just going to say that fair is not 50-50. Fair is you not worrying about your future. Fair is your children not worrying about your future. That would have been worse for all of my kids if I had been left destitute because they would be worried about me.
Right.
And so fair is not 50-50. Fair is you not worried about the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had mentioned you waited until your kids were grown before you made that move. Women stay in abusive relationships. The two primary reasons are for our children and for financial reasons, right?
Mhm.
Because we don't have the means to leave. Many of my clients are always very curious about how do I get him to leave if he's refusing to go? How did you get your ex-husband to leave the house?
That was an interesting thing because I had a lawyer at the time who told me, you don't leave the house. You don't leave the house. You'll be couch surfing. I had been in the guest room for almost 2 years when I filed for divorce. So I'd already separated from him. And I just waited it out. And I had 7 kids, and 4 of them, 5 of them were in the area. So they were coming by the house all the time. And finally, he left out a death threat. He went to a bookstore with my boys and bought 2 books that had meaning. One was the bounty
Mhm.
story of Captain Bligh that hunts down all the people that abandon him and kills them. And then the other book was a biography of King Henry VIII, who murdered some of his wives. He leaves these out in his reading area. And one of my kids saw them and said, Mom, he just left you death threat. So I took a picture of that and sent it to my lawyer, and he started moving out 2 days later.
Did your lawyer make contact with him?
I think the lawyers talked.
Okay. Okay. So you did
That's
have
my,
some legal help at that time.
yeah.
Okay. Did you feel that having an attorney through that process was helpful or beneficial for you?
Oh, I definitely wouldn't have done anything without an attorney. Attorneys are just like doctors, some are good. But I switched attorneys after my daughter had publicly said, This man abused me. My attorney got upset because he was like, He's going to get fired and you're not going to get any money. And I was like, This was never about money. I just said, I'm sorry. I need to switch attorneys.
Right.
This isn't about money.
Well, good for you. And your relationship with your attorney, especially if you're in an abusive relationship, is very important because that is another intimate relationship that you have, and you need to feel like that person has your back and is not someone who's going to re-victimize you, minimize the abuse that you're going through. Very important. And so now your
Okay.
story has evolved and you're using your story to help other women who are in abuse situations. So tell us what you've done with your story and how you're using that to improve the lives of other women going through their own abuse stories.
Well, I kind of took the approach first. I just have to process all this trauma that I went through and understanding what happened. How did I get there? Why did I stay? How did he manipulate me? How did he manipulate the whole town?
Right.
Like it wasn't just me, it was everybody. And I had the benefit of pastors that witnessed verbal abuse and witnessed how he talked about me after they tried to intervene and were like, this is bizarre. We've never
Mm-hmm.
had a person talk like this. I've never heard one human being speak to another human being like that. So I had support. And I realized when I went to the first Call to Peace retreat, which was in the middle of all this, I filed for divorce and I went to the retreat about a month later. That's when I heard all these other stories. And I was like, oh my gosh, people need help. People need a
Right.
lot of help. And I realized talking about it was something that would heal me. I did go and apologize to my kids individually for staying and for what they endured.
Well, we can't undo the past. There's
Right.
so much shame and guilt associated with, especially if we have children, we put our children through the choices that we made, but we can't undo it. And many
Mhm.
times God uses it to, we're put through the fire, but it makes us a stronger person. He's refining us through
Mhm.
that fire. So all we can do is apologize to our children, but move forward. And God can do so many good things. He can work
Mhm.
all things out for our good,
Right.
despite all the bad that occurred. Look at your daughter. Look how emboldened and powerful. And look how she's using her voice. Look how strong she is. I was talking to my daughter the other day. She's kind of stepping into faith. She's really struggled with abuse as well and some church hurt. One of the things we were talking about is, God doesn't use snowflakes to fulfill his purpose because his purpose usually requires strength. He's not going to use people that are going to fall apart. So he uses people that he has really built up and who've been through some things who are
Mhm.
tough, right? And you see that throughout the Bible, right? He's
Mhm.
using people that have done some stuff, who've been through some stuff. And it doesn't mean just because you've been through things that you're not good enough, right? He loves using people who have a story of hardship, right? Tell us about Seeking Peace coaching. When did that get started and what do you do?
Well, I started it because I really wanted to use new brain cells. I wanted to use a different part of my brain. I never had thought about having a business. And I found that being around entrepreneurs were super energetic. And I was like, those are the people I want to be around. I'm starting a new life. I want to use new parts of my brain. I'm going to learn to have my own business. And so that's where it started. Then I went to the high conflict negotiation class and certification. And then I've continued to get domestic violence certification, advocacy certification. But mostly I talk to people that are in bad situations, my friends from the past. They hear that I'm doing this work and they're like, oh, I have a friend. I'm giving her your number. And so I just talk with people, and having someone that understands what you're going through, especially if you're isolated in some little town, there's no support around. You might have to drive 45 minutes to get to a domestic violence shelter. It's just difficult. The phone and Zoom and all that has been great for people needing help.
Yeah. And so you're a certified high conflict negotiation coach? Okay. And do you do that primarily to work with women in high conflict divorce
Mhm.
situations or abuse situations?
I've only used it with women that are divorcing high conflict men.
And where can they find you? Do you have a web address?
Yes, I'm at www.seekingpeacecoaching.com. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm a little bit on Instagram.
How important or valuable do you think coaching services are for women going through abuse or high conflict separation
Mm,
is?
I think it's imperative. I think it's part of your support team. When you think of who is my kitchen table cabinet, who are the people that are, whether they're online or in person, who do the people I want to sit at the kitchen table and talk about? This is the hell I'm going through. Help me get out of it alive, not destitute, with my health intact. You want a lawyer? I hired a coach because she was less than half the cost of a lawyer per hour.
Right.
I could unload all my stuff on my counselor, but then I could take my ideas to my coach and we would hone out a plan. And then I'd be like, okay, this is what I'm going to take to my lawyer. So I don't spend all that $300 an hour with my lawyer. I'm just spending $100 an hour on my coach. I saved a ton of money by talking to her about it instead of the lawyer. Not all lawyers are specialists in domestic violence. Even though I was right next to Houston, the ones that really were trained in domestic violence, they had retainers of $10,000 and $15,000.
I think the more you speak out loud and use your voice and you tell your story, I think the more confident, the more consistent, the more credible you appear so that when you actually have to testify or tell your story later,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's in front of a judge or mediator, arbitrator, whatever the case may be, you come across as a more credible witness. So I think talking with a coach and just practicing speaking your truth out loud is very helpful. And I think it helps you, it keeps you grounded emotionally as well, because you've got someone who understands what you're going through and who can guide you through that process. It can be confusing and emotionally overwhelming. You've got one more person in your arsenal of your support team. I love to refer my clients out to coaches because they are so much cheaper and they help keep you grounded when you're feeling really emotionally reactive. Appreciate the work that you're doing. I
Thank you.
appreciate that you took your story and you're using it now to help other people. That's awesome. So, we're talking today about telling our story and writing our own declaration of freedom outside of our stories. I think you have an incredible backstory about the freedom of this country. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that and how it ties into domestic violence since we are in July and like Freedom Month.
Yeah. Well, I have my one son, Matthew, who is a historian and does our family history. He writes blog posts about our ancestors. I had a great, 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 great grandfather named Peter Kimball. That's my maiden name. He was a colonist in New Hampshire. He wrote diaries for 15, 20 years. So he tracked all this activity, and Matthew has access to those and is writing about his life. One of the things that he wrote a post on July 4th, as I read it, I was like, this is so much like escaping domestic violence. I'll
Mm.
just take the things that Peter did and tell you. First thing was when he was there, the British were in charge. He was helping them. He was a carpenter and in their service, building buildings and stuff like that. But he realized they were terribly treating their regulars in the army. They were whipping them publicly. They were starving people. So then the blockade comes on Boston. You have the Boston Tea Party and all those things. In 1773, in New Hampshire, they made their own declaration 3 years before the Declaration of Independence. It was called the Declaration of the People. And he helped write it and sign it. And it was to free themselves from oppression of being taxed without their consent. They even formed a committee of safety to build up their resistance. He was on the committee of safety and he was tasked with doing an inquiry into the character of the local pastor
Mm.
because they thought he would sabotage their attempts to get freedom. This was a whole lifetime of diaries this guy wrote. And all those words were in his diary: consent, safety, inquiring into the pastor,
Yeah.
declaration of the
Mhm.
people,
Mm.
their agency, the escape from domestic
Well,
violence.
we were made to live free. We were made to be
Mhm.
in freedom, not bondage. That's why Christ came and died for us to set us free. Our hearts, yearn for freedom, and not to be in oppression. And
Mhm.
so for this month in July, I say to the revolution and go back in our history and say, yes, ladies, we are revolutionary. We are made to be
Mhm.
free. We are going to call into our freedom. And it'll be on the screen for you. How do you write your own declaration of freedom? What does that look like for you? And what you're going to do is you're just going to say, this is my declaration. This is my name. This is who I am on this date. I am no longer bound by the chains of abuse. And then you're going to list what you are now free from. Okay. Secondly, who you are in Christ. Okay. And why that makes you free. And then third, what are you choosing instead? How are you choosing to live moving forward? And then if you'd like to write like an empowering closing statement or mantra for yourself as you move forward in freedom. This idea came to me from Tabitha Westbrook. You know
Mhm.
Tabitha, right? Yeah, so
Yes.
she's amazing. She's an amazing therapist. She's an author. She just released her very first book, Body and Soul, Healed and Whole. It's overcoming sexual trauma after abuse. It's an amazing book. Even if you don't have a lot of sexual trauma, there's some things in this book that I think all women should read, quite honestly. But she does a declaration of war against abuse in her book. And so that's kind of where the idea came from. I loved it. I think we should all do this. I would encourage you to sit down. This is a great journaling exercise, but do this with power. Right. This is not a passive exercise. I want you to write it out and then speak it out loud, like with power. Abuse is no longer going to define me. Janet, did you happen to draft a
Yeah.
declaration of freedom that you're willing to share with our audience?
Yeah, I read it to my daughter and I was like, is this cringy? She's like, no, it's great.
That's
So
awesome. You don't have to read it like Tabitha does when she reads hers.
what is it that I praise God I no longer have to deal with when I lie in my bed in my own home in safety? And
Mm.
there were many nights I'd lie down in bed and be like, thank God. Here's my declaration. Janet Kelly, declare on this day, July 10th, 2025, that I am no longer bound to the chains of abuse. I am free of being told lies about where he has been. I am free of the coercive control of being in his presence and worrying about who he would harm. I am free of worrying that he would give me an STD. I am
Mm.
free to sleep in peace without him trying to beat me up as I slept.
Mm.
I am free from riding in the car with a man who exhibited extreme road rage toward both random drivers and the passengers in his car. I am free to not have to pretend in public that we are a happy couple at home or else face his wrath. I am free to worship God without being manipulated in Sunday school to think he is a believer. I am free from singing praise songs next to a wolf in the pew. I am loved. I am chosen. I am free. I am provided for. I am protected. I am worthy to be called a child of God. I choose to trust God to restore the years the locusts have eaten. I choose to live safely without fear of the future. I choose to learn to use my voice to set other captives free. I choose to leave justice for me and my marriage in the capable hands of God. I choose to learn how to have healthy relationships and boundaries with everyone in my life. Today, I walk in truth, not fear, in freedom, not bondage, in love, not abuse. By God's grace, I am free and I will never go back.
Yay. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing. I'm sure that there are a lot of other women out there that are really going
Mhm.
to resonate with what you just said. There's a lot of us that have experienced those same things. Many of the things you said I'm free from, I've experienced too. And so I appreciate your vulnerability and your being willing to share. It was beautiful. So thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
And I really appreciate you being a guest on our show today. Is there anything else in closing that you wanted to share with the women out there?
I would just say that no matter where you are in your relationship that you're watching this video about, there are people that will help you. There are people that have been there before. Contact Tiffany, and if she can't help you, then she knows people who can. Reach out, don't go it alone. They're trying to isolate you. That's the first thing
Mhm.
you got to break. Don't let them isolate you.
Absolutely right. We are not meant to do this alone. We are not meant to be isolated. We're meant to be in community with one another, and healing comes best when we're in community.
Mm-hmm.
Satan doesn't want you in community. He wants you isolated because that's when he can twist the truth and get you confused. So thank you again, Janet.
You're welcome.
I make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, like us, share this video with friends, other sisters who might need to hear this. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure to join us next week, Tuesday at 7 p.m. We publish a new webcast every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Next week, July 29th, we will have a special guest, Tabitha Westbrook, with us online, and we'll be talking about this is your Independence Day. Again, we're focusing on freedom, how to walk away with power, peace, and a plan. Please join us next week. Remember, I'm a North Carolina licensed attorney. I cannot give specific legal advice if you're in a state outside of North Carolina. If you need specific legal advice, I would encourage you to seek an attorney in your state. Appreciate Janet being with us. If you'd like to learn more information about her legal or her conflict coaching, please reach out to her on Facebook or her website at seekingpeacecoaching.com. And thank you again for being with us.
Oh,
Stay safe, stay empowered, and have a great week. We'll see you next time.